Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V, where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders that have overcome so that you know that the possibilities are endless. It's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches nurses to work from their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time, building profitable businesses. Our featured guest today is Dr. Latour Scott. Dr. Latour is the owner of Eclipse Health Consultants and its affiliate, the Nurse Doc is Zen, merging the art and science of nursing with yogic practices, which promote holistic wellness. Our mission is to normalize self-care as a part of the activities of daily living. Dr. Latour is a registered nurse with 27 years of clinical experience and a heart failure nurse certification, and has a heart failure nurse certification. As a holistic wellness practitioner, she is passionate about empowering clients to optimize their health and well-being through endocannabinoid systems, education, and lifestyle practices that support homeostasis. Dr. Latour is a proud alumni of Grambling State University, where she earned her BSN in 1994 and then went on to earn a BS in sociology in 1995 and an MPA in 1997 with specialization in health administration. In 2012, Dr. Latour successfully defended her dissertation, which let me tell you is a beast, and obtained her PhD in public health with a specialization in community education and health promotion from Walden University. So welcome, welcome, welcome here.
Thank you.
So now you said that when you were born, this the story is quite interesting to me. So
Yeah.
so when you said when you were born, your parents were social advocates.
Yes.
What was unique about your birth?
Yeah. So my mom, so everybody knows I call my mom Diva. So she was a social activist. She was like, I'm not no advocate. She was my mom. My mother was Black Panther down. She was an
Okay,
activist.
okay.
So yeah, both of my parents were member of the Black Panther Party, which is another podcast. But yeah, they were social activists. And we are from a very small town in Louisiana, Homer, Louisiana. So Homer, which is North Louisiana, because there's also a Houma, Louisiana, which is down toward New Orleans. But
Okay.
we are from the North. And so both of my parents were from this small town. And people always say, well, how were they activists? You were, that wasn't that long ago. Exactly. I was born in 1970, and it was not that long ago. The town was still segregated. They were like, we don't care what the rest of the world doing, but what we're going to do right here is this. And so they were actually, they were marching for the right to vote because it was being suppressed. So yes, Black people had the right to vote, but they would do things. It would be, they would have all these different rules, and so they would do things to discourage it, or they would come through in the middle of the night and like do terror raids and that type of thing. So they were protesting so that they could exercise their right to vote. So my father and some of the other men were organizing to try to get some of the churches organized to do this. And the police rounded up all of the men. So it was another intimidation technique. And so they rounded up all of the men that they felt were involved or that you happen to be in the vicinity, and they put them in jail. And so, because it was supposed to be a march that day. And so they thought if they did that, it would deter it. So the women, like, no, we're still going to march. And we want our men because you got to let them go because they haven't done anything. So my mother was probably around 7 months pregnant, 7, 8 months, close to 8 months
With
pregnant
you.
with me. Yeah, with
Hmm.
me. And she was supposed to just drive, but not march. She was supposed to drive to the march. Also, the children, because she had my cousins with her in the car. So she was just supposed to drive. She was not supposed to get out. She was not supposed to march. But Diva being Diva, and anybody that knows my mother, she rolled the windows down in the car. It's like, y'all gonna be okay. It's all right. That's when you could do that without getting arrested. And so she marched. And just like you see on TV, the fire hoses and the police dogs and everything. And so the police put the fire hose on. They didn't care it was a group of women and some children. They put the police dogs out. And so my grandmother jumped in front of my mother and she actually had got bitten to keep the dog off of her. But then they put the fire hose and the power of it just pushed everybody into the wall. So then my mom and my grandmother and my aunts, they got arrested. So the women get arrested too. So my mom has been knocked into this wall onto the ground and she goes into labor while they're in jail. She actually starts spotting, goes into labor because of this trauma. And so they call for the jailer and they're like, look, she's in labor. We need to get her out of here. And my mom had previously, she had a miscarriage and then she had had a stillbirth. So I'm her rainbow baby. So, my mom had already had two losses. And so they were like, you got to let her out here. And the jailers were like, it's not our problem. She shouldn't have been out marching. And my grandma was like, no, you don't understand. She's going to lose this baby. You need to let her out. And they was like, not our problem. She shouldn't have been marching. And so my grandmother was like, you know what? They prayed around my mother. She put her hands on my mom's belly. She was like, you're not losing this baby. She's like, this is not the plan we have for God has for you. You're not losing this baby. I don't know what she's gonna do in life. They didn't know I was a she or what this baby's gonna do, but you're not losing this baby. And my mom was like, she was like having contractions and stuff. And she was like, when my grandmother prayed over me, it stopped. And of course, she didn't lose me because I'm sitting here talking to you. But I'm sorry, my headphones are acting crazy.
That's
But
okay.
but yeah, so I was almost born in jail. I tell people that all the time. I was like, I was almost born in jail.
Started out in jail.
Started
Started
out. I
out in jail.
started out in jail because Diva decided that she was gonna march anyway.
Go march instead of just driving.
Yeah, instead of just driving. Yeah,
I, I,
she got
I
to,
got
she got to be in the mix.
It's that toughness. It's that toughness. And you said that you were a victim of brown bagging in the South. What does that mean?
So I was the actual act of brown bagging. I can explain what that is. I didn't have that done to me, but I was a victim of the mentality of brown bagging. So anyone from South Louisiana probably already knows what this is. Brown bagging is when um, other Black people use this as a way of excluding for colorism. So if they held up a brown paper bag, the color of a brown paper bag. If
Mhm,
you held up a brown paper bag against your skin and you were darker than the brown paper bag, then you
mhm.
were too dark for that particular organization or activity or whatever the heck that we were trying to do. Okay. And so you had to be as light, like equal to or lighter than the brown paper bag. So that's what brown paper bagging is. Is if your
Wow.
skin tone is darker than this brown paper bag, then you're too dark for this it was mostly for organizations and different activities and things like that. And so brown paper bagging was something that was done a lot in the South. Um, they didn't tell you that that's what it was, but that's what it was. And at the time where I grew up, the mentality was still there. I mean, a person wouldn't actually come up to you and place a brown paper bag next to you, but the mentality was there. It was definitely a lot of colorism in Louisiana. And honey, I mean, I am chocolate, so you didn't have to do the. I knew already that I'm darker than this bag, so We don't have to pull it out. We don't have to pull it out. We're good. So I got a lot of that, and it was like colorism and racism to me are the same. They're the same. It's just you're getting it from one group instead of the other. And so growing up in Louisiana, I tell people all the time, growing up in Louisiana as a brown girl um, was interesting because you have light skinned Black people and then you have white people. And you're dealing with all of that. And I used to always get because I was always involved with a lot of activities and different things like that. And I was always, you're really pretty for a dark girl, or you're really pretty for a brown skinned girl. So never you're just pretty. It's like you're pretty for a dark girl. It's like,
Mm, I'd be
thank
like,
you. I'm like,
Cletus,
thank you. I think
hey, I'm pretty. I don't care what color I am. But anyway, people
it was
just.
always, thank you. I think.
Now, how did you originally become a nurse? What was the rationale?
My rationale for becoming a nurse. So, when I was in high school, one of my friends went to a party, went and we think someone put something in her drink. We still to this day don't know exactly what happened, but that's the only rationale of what happened. Okay, so she went to this party I was supposed to go to that I didn't go to. So God be watching out for watching out for me. And something got slipped into her drink, and she ended up with a toxic brain injury.
Wow.
So she ended up with a toxic brain injury, and literally, this was like our junior year, in a sophomore year, because like that summer going into junior year in high school. So she ended up with a toxic brain injury and literally like reverted back to being a child, like a toddler, like couldn't talk, had to learn how to walk again, just couldn't speak, was having seizure activities all the time from this toxic brain injury. And so they were living in Natchitoches, and we had moved to Shreveport by this time. But Natchitoches is a smaller town than than Shreveport, and so she needed to come to a specialty hospital, and so the hospital was in Shreveport, but her mother was still in Natchitoches, because she had to work and stuff. And so my mom and I were in Shreveport, and my mom would take me by the hospital to visit with her, and the nurses would allow me to help with her therapy and different things because I was her age, and they were trying to get her to engage and literally like teaching her how to use a fork. I mean, just the basics like you would do a baby. And they would let me talk to her or play music or do whatever I wanted to do just to keep her engaged, and to keep her calm too, because if she got upset, she'd start having seizures. And so the nurses had been let me, they let me hang out with them, just do different things or whatever. And so one day I went to visit her and I walked in the room. Now, like I told you, she hadn't spoken. This was like months, hadn't spoken, hadn't done anything. I walked in the room and she turned her head and looked at me and she's like, "Hey, Latour." Just like out of the blue. I was like, "What?" I
Wow.
said, "What did you say?" She was like, "Hey." I said, "Well, hello." And I was like, "Hey." And so the nurses came and they was like, "We've been waiting all day. We were hoping," because I didn't go every day because I had school. They were like, "We were hoping you would come today." It was like she started talking today and she asked for you first thing. I was done. I was like, "This is what I'm supposed to do.
I
This is
love
what I'm
it. I
supposed
love
to
it.
do."
So how's she doing now?
Oh, she is wonderful. She is doing great. She married. I don't forgot how many kids she got, but she has beautiful family. She's doing wonderful. She's doing wonderful.
I love it. I love it. That's such a great story. So now you have 2 PhDs. Now now I got a DMP, and they're both terminal degrees, obviously. One is
Yeah,
just a different path in nurse.
yeah.
Well, actually, you didn't even get yours in nursing. You got
No.
yours. So
Yes.
now what
So
are
I
the
have
2?
one PhD and then I have a doctorate of pastoral health ministry. So one is a
Uh,
doctorate and one is a PhD. So my PhD is in public health and it's my specialization is community education and health promotion. I
uh-huh.
got that through Walden University, and like I said, I defended my dissertation in 2012. And I have a doctorate of pastoral health ministry from a seminary from from a seminary, and it's a Messianic seminary. So that's an interesting story. So yeah, I have a doctorate in pastoral health ministry,
Now
and
tell
it's
us what messianic means.
so Messianic is it's a Jewish faith, but they believe that Jesus was the Christ. So it's like a they don't call themselves Christians, but it's messianic. So they actually believe that Jesus was the Messiah because Jewish tradition, they believe that Jesus was a good man and he was a teacher, but not the
The
Messiah.
Messiah. Right.
Messianic Jews are like, oh yeah, he was he was the Messiah. He was the Messiah. So they have that coordination. They still do all of the traditional Jewish faith, but they believe that Jesus was the Messiah.
Now what made you seek the higher degree? And what made you get 2 of them?
Okay. Yeah, what is going on with that, right? So at the time, I was married to a minister. I married a youth pastor, and I was married to a youth pastor, and I'm still very active in church, but I was very very active in church and with youth, and health has always been my passion, and so we were serving at a church in Atlanta at the time, and the pastor's wife had a doctorate in theology. And she was like, you can help me write for grants if you have terminal degree. And I was like, can I just write it and you put your name on it? Do I have to, so I had to go back to school. And she was like, no, you would be great. You should do whatever. So I actually started the pastoral health ministry doctorate first. I didn't
Uh,
finish it first because I quit. That's another story. But I started it. I started it first, and so I started it for that reason, to be able to assist and to write grants. And I did a lot of things with rural churches and different things like that. So that was my whole passion for going um, to get the doctorate. And then when I stopped the program and I started my PhD program in public health, it was because I was like, you know what, I need to do something where it's health related because I want to be able to help more people. And so that was the whole point of that. And so I worked full time, had a child. Like I told my son, I think I've been in school his entire life, and had my son and was working full time and married at the time, and uh, did my PhD in public health and was taking classes here and there with the doctor. So I say I quit, but I didn't really quit. I just was like, so I was doing these time like in sync at the same time.
gotcha.
And so I finished my PhD in public health first. And then like a year and a half later, I finished my doctorate finally.
Love it. So now you were blessed and you were told that you did not have to pay for your program. Tell us about that.
Yes, for my doctorate in pastoral health ministry. So by the time I finished my doctorate in pastoral health ministry, like I said, I mean, I literally stopped, started a lot because a lot was going on in my life. I was divorced by this time. And in the process of when I had to, because I had a mentor who was the chancellor of the school, and I had to meet with her once a month. And so she kind of knew something was going on with me, but she didn't really know exactly what it was. And we met one day for one of our sessions, and she was like, "Look, we're not talking about no school stuff today. Something's going on with you. You need to talk to me." And this was before I had even filed, right? I was just like, this is going on in my life. I've tried. This is not working for either one of us. We both need to be away from each other for us to be our best selves. It wasn't just me, I wasn't the best for him either. And she was like, you know what? You need to let that guilt go. She said, because if that's really what's going on and that's not what it's meant to be, you need to release yourself from that guilt and the stress of it. And she kind of knew kind of things had gone on in my marriage, as far as it was always a financial struggle. It was just always that type of thing. And I was always like, it was always on me to do a lot of different things. And she was like, you need to, if you really done all that you felt you could do, you need to release yourself from that. And so I was like, yes, ma'am. And and then like about 2-3 weeks later, I get a letter from the school because I could pay, I paid monthly. I get a letter from the school saying that my tuition was paid. And so I called and I was like, because I was trying to make sure they really hadn't taken all the rest of my tuition. I was like,
Well, wait a
wait a
minute. Wait a
minute,
minute. Did this come out of my paycheck?
right? Because I'm gonna need to rearrange some stuff because we're gonna have some problems if that's what y'all did, right?
It's gonna take 5 business days to get it
And
out of the savings account.
because my checking account set up in my Kevin Hart voice, is like, wait a second, I wait now. So I called them and I was like, I think it was a mistake, or what did or something, what happened? And so I called to talk to financial people, and they were like, no, your tuition was paid. And I said, okay, well, what account? So what account? What happened? And they were like, we don't know who paid. It was just paid. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. And then I get a second letter from the chancellor, and she was like, look, she's like, you don't need this extra stress on you. God has something big for you. I need you to finish this program so that you can go out in the world and do what you need to do. She was like, I told them your tuition is covered. Your books are covered. She's like, they should get another bill from this school. She said, if you get another bill from the school, you call me. She said, we're done with this. She said, I want you to finish, because I had told her I was stopping. I was like, it's just too much. I already had a PhD. I was like, I'm good. She's like, no, you're going to finish this program because this is the ministry that God has for you. And she was like, and so if you get another bill from us, you send it to me. She's like, because you're done. So that's what happened with
I
that.
love it. Love it, love it. And I really, really like that she, just really, really wanted to be a blessing. And that is so cool to be a blessing to someone else.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
mean, now you were married to a pastor, as we talked about. Now,
Yes.
what was that experience like?
So I was married to a youth pastor, and it was very interesting. Our love story, and I still feel like it was a love story. It was very interesting because when I was a teenager, I actually used to babysit for our youth. I had the biggest crush on my youth pastor. Biggest crush on my youth pastor. I loved him. His name was Glenn. Loved Glenn to death. Honey, had the biggest crush on him. And his wife knew I had the biggest crush on him. And it was so funny because I would babysit their children. I would babysit. They had two boys. I was babysit their kids, and she would always bring me in like I was their daughter. But she knew I had the biggest crush on, on Glenn. And so when I got married, I ended up marrying a youth pastor. So I was like, okay, what is happening with this? And it was a wonderful experience. And I tell people all the time, I don't feel like my marriage. Um, At first, I feel like it failed. Now I say that it ended. It ran its course and it ended because it was not a failure because I got my son out of it. And now the greatest gift that I could ever have received in my life. He's tell him that he's my joy forever. And so I wouldn't have my son if that had not happened. But being married to a pastor or a minister, anybody who has had that experience, it's like being married to, I would think I've never done it, but being married to somebody that's like a rock star. If you're in the church world, it is it is an experience. The groupies are there, just like if you were married to
Wow.
Kanye. It's just an experience. I remember our very first one of our very first church service as husband and wife. He was preaching, and I was sitting out in the audience, and there was a lady sitting in front of me, and she was just talking about how handsome he was, and talking to her friend how handsome he was, and oh, I'm gonna have to get to meet him because we had by this time we had moved from his hometown of Kansas City to Atlanta, so we were at a new church, so we were new to this area. So who is that? And oh yeah, I'm gonna have to get to meet him. But I'm sitting behind them, and her friend goes, "He's married," and she was like, "And we're we're in church, right?" And so I'm sitting behind them, new wife, like we had been married maybe 4 months. And so I'm sitting behind him, and I'm like, I'm going, okay, you are a pastor's wife in my head. I'm like, do not snatch this lady in church. Okay. You need to calm down. It's okay, whatever. So I'm saying all this to myself. And I mean, just going on. And so he gets up to preach. And so he would always say, introduce me. And he would be like, so he was getting ready to preach, and he's like, before I give you guys the message, before I give you the word, I want to introduce my love, and I want you guys to meet to see my beautiful wife that I was blessed with. And he's like, will you stand up? And so I stand up. I'm sitting directly behind her.
Uh-huh,
I
uh-huh.
stand up and I go, yeah, the wife.
That's right, Cleta. Don't make me. Don't make me.
And she was like, turn beat red, and I just sat back down. I was like, okay, God, that was not nice. Don't do that.
It was not. It was to me. It was very nice because I had tapped on the shoulder and said, "I'm his wife." I just want to let you know, okay, Cletus.
And her friend was like, looking, I was like, yeah. Yeah.
That is hilarious.
So that's kind of how our life was a lot. Um, and just it was always good because I served in ministry anyway before I actually met him at church. I met him serving. I had moved to Kansas City to do my postgraduate internship for my master's program. Didn't know anybody. Um, just moved on my own, and my pastor, my childhood pastor, told me to go to this church because his best friend was the pastor there. And so he had told me to go to the church, and I had been in Kansas City for 4 months and hadn't been to that church because I had met somebody at work and was going to church with them. So it wasn't the church he told me to go to. And so I was like, I'm just gonna go over there because he gonna keep asking my mama, have I been to church? So I'm just gonna go over there one Sunday so I can say, yeah, I went. But I had planned to continue to go to church with this lady that I had met. And the Sunday that I showed up at the church that my pastor told me to go to was Youth Sunday. And so my ex-husband was preaching. It was
Got
Youth Sunday. So he was conducting the service. And so it was great because it was youth Sunday, and it was, they was fun. They were doing all the dance and everything they were doing. And so he gets up to preach, and he was just talking, and I was like, it was like, "Oh, okay, I could probably come here. I could probably come here. All right."
This is
And
super cute and everything.
yeah, since our pastor wanted me to come here, it must have been a reason. It must have been a reason,
Hilarious.
right? So
I
yeah,
love that.
I could do this. And so I went, and then I actually started going to that church after that day. I started going to that church. I became a part of the young adults, because I was a young adult at the time, not now, but I was a young adult. I started being part of the young adult ministry, and he led the young adult ministry, the Bible study. And so, like, I had been in church all my life. And so he was like, "How do you understand all this stuff?" And he was just now, so we had that intellectual kind of connection. And then basically the young adults basically kind of match made us. They just kind of,
Gotcha.
we would do different activities, and we'd end up always working the same. It would be like, you guys are working over there. And it would be just us. Or we all went out on a group activity, and it was like one night we went to the movies. And so we were going, I mean, we went as a group. It was like at least 10 or 11 of us. But for some strange reason, our two seats was away from everybody else. No,
Hilarious.
everybody else had to sit somewhere else. So they were did like a matchmaking. So
I love it. I love it. I
yeah.
love it. Now, after you were divorced, you found your passion. Now, what is it and why is it so effective for you and your clients?
So self-care, as far as, and this through yoga. So I started doing yoga. I did it like hit and miss, but I actually started doing it consistently, probably 3 or 4 years before I actually finally filed for divorce. Because I rode around with the papers for my divorce in my briefcase for 2 years before I would actually file them. So it wasn't a decision that I just made, and that was that. It was very
Tough.
so it was tough, and because of my son, because my son is a daddy's boy, always has been, still is, and he looks just like him. So it was very hard for me. And I started doing yoga again for stress management. And yoga, from my understanding at that time, was just the posture. So what you see, the ashanas, which is what people think yoga is, and yoga is actually a lot more than that. It's 8 limbs to yoga: breathing, meditation, the actual movement practices, how you treat people, all of that. But I started doing
Mm,
the movement for stress management, and because it was quiet and it was a peaceful time. And so I started doing that maybe couple of years before my divorce. And I tell people all the time, I would truly believe that um, I found a yoga teacher, because I had never went to a class. I was doing it online, on YouTube videos, because I was too embarrassed to go to a class. I wouldn't go. I just wouldn't do it outside my house. And so getting up to the time when I actually filed for my divorce, I found a black yoga teacher
mhm.
that had class, or that I felt comfortable with it. And I believe God took me to her because it kept me sane, because it was so stressful for me during that time working, and um, trying to make sure my son was okay, and uh, all of that. And so that was my passion. And so taking self-care. And so part of what I learned through my journey from my divorce was, part of it was me being, like I said, I grew up in the church. I grew up, in the South, where you cater to your husband. And there's nothing wrong with that. You should do that, but you can't lose your voice. So the one thing that I learned from my divorce, that I tell any woman that I know that's getting married, is yes, you cater to your mate. You cater to, because even in relationships, you cater to them, but that doesn't mean you sacrifice you.
Right.
You cater to them, but you don't sacrifice you. And so the biggest thing, and actually, I tell my ex-husband, I was like, I talk to you more now than I talked to you when we was married. It's like, what is wrong with that? It's like, stop calling me. What are we talking about? But we're very cordial. We are team Joshua. That's our son, so it's all about him. So it's very amicable, very casual. But I'm like, literally, he'll text me every other day. I'm like, dude, when we lived in the house together, I ain't talked to you this much. What is going on? So, but it was because I was like, part of that was me not speaking when things were not, when I felt um neglected, or when I felt like it was too much for me. I felt like it was too much. You're expecting too much from me. You're not helping me enough. I should have spoken out, and I didn't. I just held it in because I was like, you just need to figure it out, because I grew up a very matriarchal family, and we just do, you fix it. You figure it out and you get it done. You don't do what you want to do. You do what you have to do, and you push through it and you get it done. Yeah, and that's the mentality that I had. And I was raised by a single mother. She was married to my father, but then she ended up getting a divorce, and it was the two of us, and it was like, it's me and you, and we got this, and you push through. And so that's the mentality that I had. And so it would be little things, and I would give him one opportunity, and if he didn't do it, I was like, you know what, I got this. You don't ever get another chance to do this again. Okay, I got it. From here on out, it's done. Instead of talking and communicating. And so the thing that I learned from my marriage definitely was, you cater to your spouse, you cater to your mate, you know what their love language is, but that also, you make sure that they know what yours is too. You don't lose yourself in that. And so that's my passion, is to teach people self-care should be a daily thing. We will say, oh, in 6 months, I'm going to the spa, or this summer, me and my girlfriends are going out. We're going to go and do like a relaxation retreat. And that's great. You should do that. But you should be doing self-care practices every single day, because every single day is a blessing. Every single day is a gift. And you should be doing something every single day just for you. And when I work with clients, I try to get them to understand that mindset, or get them into actually incorporating that into their daily life, so that it becomes a lifestyle. It's not something that you have to think about. It's just something that you do. And I say activities of daily living, because you're gonna brush your teeth hopefully every day. You're gonna brush your teeth, you're gonna take a bath, you're gonna the things that you would do every day. Self-care should be one of those things. So it should be a part of your activities of daily living. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be, which I wish, I don't wish, I am praying that someday that I'm gonna be in that, where I could just go to the spa every day if I wanted to. That could be my life. But it doesn't have to be that. You can create a spa experience at home. Making sure you're getting enough water every day, hydrating it so your skin looks great. That's self-care, and that's something you should be doing anyway. It also keeps you from overeating if you're hydrated enough. So it keeps your weight regulated. So different things like that, learning how to incorporate everyday normal things. One of the things I usually start out with people, especially if it's I'm working with a client that's saying that they're wanting to lose weight, we talk about, well, what do you do? What are your activities? And when you're running errands, I was like, okay, when you go to the store, where do you park?
You giving out all the secrets. You giving out all
Yeah,
the secrets beforehand. We
yeah.
we got to find you.
I
We
was
got to
like, I was
find
like, I
you.
was like, I was like, where do you park? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, do you drive around for 15 minutes waiting for somebody to pull out so you can park up to the door? Or do you park at the back of the parking lot so you can walk? And they're like, I never
I
thought about it.
drive
It's like,
around.
yeah, it's like I drive around saying, no, go park your car, especially if it's a safe. I mean, if it's not safe, you park where it's safe. But if it's a safe area, park your car and walk. Then you get part of your steps in. So if your goal is to get so many steps, you're getting your steps in. Why are you driving 15 minutes? You could have been in the store and got your groceries back out. What are you doing?
Well, all these things are phenomenal. So now, where can the audience find you?
So I am online on Facebook and Instagram as the Nurse Doc is Zen.
Okay,
Um, Facebook, it may be Nurse Doc Zen then, but it's the Nurse Doc is Zen. My website is the nursedociszen.com.
I love it,
So
love it, love it, love
yeah,
it. So thank you, thank you, thank you, because you're out of town right now,
yeah.
for joining me this morning. So we will be starting another cohort of VP Nursing Business Academy in October. It's a 6-month comprehensive program that leads nurses to work from their computers anywhere around the world, make money and own their own time. If this interests you, we can jump on a call so that you're able to gain clarity to create multiple streams of income. You can sign up at vpnursing.com. I ask that you like and share this podcast. And Morning Infusion is where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders that have overcome, such as Dr. Scott, so that you know that the possibilities are endless. And thank you so much for joining us this morning, especially out of
Thank
town.
you.
You took your time out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day.